The Caitlin Clark stimulus package, also known as the newly agreed upon CBA deal. Make no mistake about it, folks. Every time the owners came to the table and said, fine, we'll increase the salary cap to this, you can thank Caitlin Clark. Every time the owner said, fine, we'll pay for your housing again, you can thank Caitlin Clark. Every time the owner said, shoot, we really don't want to come up off this 15% number, but you know what? We'll move a little bit. You could thank
Aya Wilson didn't see this coming. Neither did those who spent the past 2 years insisting Caitlin Clark's rise was overhyped, a media-driven surge destined to fade, with ratings bound to cool and the league's established stars carrying the spotlight. They were wrong. The WNBA has now ratified the most significant collective bargaining agreement in its history, signaling a turning point that validates the league's explosive growth, new audience energy, and undeniable momentum reshaping professional women's basketball today.
A'ja Wilson and all her Glazers could give a big thank you to Caitlin Clark for her getting paid. Ever since the league came to an agreement, all we've been hearing about is how A'ja Wilson is about to sign this historic Supermax deal like she just did it all on her own. No, you could thank Caitlin Clark for revolutionizing the game so you could get paid. We don't care how many MVPs and championships A'ja won or how she was already known. It doesn't matter. She didn't change the dynamic of the league for the players to get.
Salary cap surged from $1.5 million to $7 million. Average salaries jumped from about $120,000 to over $600,000, while the minimum climbed past $300,000. This is real, transformative money numbers veterans have pushed for long before Caitlin Clark reached the spotlight. Then came the headline figure, Clark's pay rising from $78,066 in 2025 to $530,000 in 2026. That number lit a fuse, and now the entire conversation around the league is exploding with intensity.
For example, 2024 Rookie of the Year Caitlin Clark, who made $78,066 in 2025, is poised to see her salary jump to $530,000 in 2026. So this year, she is about to jump to that salary, okay? Now, the other jump, the new provision would also be applicable to younger stars such as Aaliyah Boston, who is max eligible in 2026, and Paige Beckers, who is max eligible in 20.
Here's what actually happened. The WNBA and its Players Association spent 17 months in intense negotiations everyone in women's basketball knew were inevitable. The old CBA had become outdated, a system built for a league still fighting for relevance, not one smashing viewership records, selling out arenas in long-struggling markets, and securing broadcast deals that would have seemed impossible just 5 years ago. The league had evolved faster than its financial structure could keep up. And at the center of that surge in every key metric, every spike in attention, every boardroom suddenly tuned and stood one player driving the momentum.
Why they had the battery in the back that they had was because of Caitlin Clark's impact. All of the numbers and the metrics that the players could point to. Oh, do you see these ratings? Well, Caitlin Clark effect. Oh, do you see this attendance? Well, Caitlin Clark effect. Do you see the social media impressions? Well, Caitlin Clark effect. This is called the Caitlin Clark stimulus package, and it will go down.
When the new CBA arrived in March 2026, it introduced a mechanism no one wanted to publicly tie to a single player. They called it the EPIC provision, exceptional performance on initial contracta fast-track salary structure for players who reshape the league's financial landscape before their rookie deals expire. Caitlin Clark's name isn't written anywhere in the official language, but it didn't need to be. Everyone across the WNBA knew exactly who inspired it. The EPIC provision is the league's quiet, formal acknowledgement in clear, written terms that not all players are valued the same, and that certain stars demand entirely different frameworks, timelines, and compensation structures to match their unprecedented.
So this WNBA collective bargaining agreement will fast-track the ability for players on a rookie scale contract to make maximum and supermax salaries, sources told ESPN. The new provision, called EPIC, exceptional performance on initial contract, allows players to renegotiate their 4-year salary and earn the standard max that year if they were previously an all WNBA first team or second team, or the supermax if they won the...
Let's put the numbers on the table, because they're the only way this story comes through without being softened or spun. In 2025, Caitlin Clark, the player who helped push the WNBA past 1 million viewers per game for the first time since 2008, who sold out opposing arenas in cities that hadn't seen full crowds in years, and whose presence alone moved broadcast ratings in ways no other player could match, earned $78,066. $78,000. Roughly the salary of a mid-level paralegal or an entry-level marketing coordinator in a mid-sized office. It wasn't remotely comparable to rookie deals in the NBA, NFL, or MLB. And yet, during that same period, Clark was breaking assist records, driving jersey sales, and putting women's basketball back in front of national audiences at a scale the league hadn't experienced in decades. She was delivering historic value on the court and in the business of the sport, while the compensation lagged far behind it. The reality was simple. The league's most influential asset was being paid like a standard rookie, not a generational draw reshaping demand across arenas, broadcasts, and merchandise. That disconnect became impossible to ignore. The new CBA stands as the league's formal, overdue acknowledgement that the numbers had to change because the reality already had.
Is because of the quote-unquote epic rule. I'm going to call it the Caitlin rule, because let's be real, she was the first person to have reached this. Whether it be it's Caitlin, Aaliyah, and Paige are all eligible. I'm just going to call it the Caitlin rule. Just like the old Rose rule in the NBA, we're going to call it the Caitlin rule. So, ironically, if Caitlin goes and wins MVP this year, she's actually eligible for the...
In 2026, that changes. Caitlin Clark's salary rises to $530,000, a jump of more than 500%, over 6 times what she earned the previous season. On paper, it looks like progress. But before the league is applauded for finally getting it right, there's a pause needed. Because even at $530,000, this remains one of the biggest gaps between value created and pay received in modern professional sports. In 2025, while Clark earned $78,066 from the WNBA, her total income reached $16.1 million through endorsements, appearances, speaking engagements, and global brand partnerships with companies like Nike, State Farm, Gatorade, Wilson, and more. She was the 6th highest-paid female athlete in the world. At peak earning power, her WNBA salary represented less than half of 1% of her total income. The league was effectively receiving franchise-level impact at a fraction of real market value and imbalance that would be hard to justify in any other major industry. The raise to $530,000 is significant, and it is deserved many times over. But it still does not fully reflect her actual economic impact on broadcasts, sponsorships, ticket demand, and arena sales that spike the moment her name appears on the schedule. It is not justice. It is simply the minimum adjustment the league could make without further exposing the scale of the gap.
The way the team is structured, in order for this team to remain intact, Sophie would have to be willing to take a league minimum kind of deal, which is around $300,000. And I don't see that happening. Okay, and I believe also people are going to be shocked how much money Lexi Hull is about to be offered, because I think she's going to get offered $600,000 to $700,000 by somebody, and that is going to greatly complicate things.
But here's where the story stops feeling like celebration and starts turning into a chess problem. Clark's salary rising from $78,000 to $530,000 doesn't create new money. It comes directly out of a hard salary cap. The WNBA's new cap sits at $7 million, which is the total payroll limit for an entire roster. Not just Clark, but every player from the first starter to the final bench spot has to fit under that number. That means every dollar becomes a trade-off. And now Clark alone takes up more than 7% of the Fever's cap before extensions, max contracts, or off-season moves even enter the conversation. Indiana isn't just paying a star, they're building an entire team around a rapidly tightening financial frame. When your franchise player finally gets paid closer to value and multiple core pieces are also due for new deals in the same window, there's a name for what happens next: a squeeze. And the Fever are stepping directly into it, where every roster decision carries consequences and flexibility starts to disappear one contract at a time.
Wish they would have had Kelsey Mitchell on here, because after last season, I mean, look, Kelsey finished what, third or fourth in the MVP voting? This is her contract to make as much money as she possibly can, I believe, in this league. And come next year, because I don't think that the Fever are going to be able to keep her next season. And one could argue, depending on how much you covet depth on a team, like how deep do you want your team to be? I think one could argue against re-signing Kelsey Mitchell this.
Let's talk about Kelsey Mitchell, because she's the piece of this conversation the national media keeps underestimating. She's one of the most dangerous scoring guards in the league, and arguably the second best player on the Indiana Fever. Now she finds herself at a contract crossroads made far more complex by the new CBA. Mitchell was a free agent before the 2025 season, and Indiana used the core designation to bring her back on a one-year deal. Under the new system, if the Fever core her again in 2026, which is still their most logical short-term move, her salary jumps to $4 million. That's a supermax contract, and it is appropriate for her production. But it also represents about 20% of Indiana's entire $7 million salary cap for one player who isn't Caitlin Clark. At the same time, Aaliyah Boston is max eligible this offseason. Clark, through the EPIC provision, becomes eligible for a 3-year max deal projected at $3 million in 2027, potentially rising toward $7 million on a supermax extension by 2028. Now run the numbers slowly. Clark at $3 million. Boston at a max, Mitchell at $4 million. Just those 3 contracts consume more than half of Indiana's total cap before a backup point guard is signed, before the forward rotation is built, before any depth is added. That is the reality. Indiana's front office is facing a historic pay structure that is also a roster construction puzzle inside a $7 million budget.
Kelsey Mitchell to take a 1-year deal instead of a multi-year deal is due to this. Aaliyah Boston is eligible for the Supermax this year. The following year, Caitlin Clark is eligible for a Supermax, which could be worth $1.7 million, actually close to $2 million. So who are you going to invest in? Kelsey Mitchell or Caitlin Clark? And that's why I say, don't play this game, Fever. I'm talking to organizations. I'm talking to Amber Cox, Kelly Krauskopf, and definitely Stephanie White. Don't mess this up. Please, for the love of God, do not mess this up. I don't mind if Kelsey Mitchell comes back for 1 year, but
this is a classic small cap squeeze, a story professional sports has seen repeatedly in cities across every major league whenever a franchise player's value begins to exceed what a full roster can comfortably hold under a fixed payroll. You build something electric, identify your core, and the star earns the raise she deserves, fan-driven, revenue-backed, and justified by every metric in the building. But eventually, the math catches up with the vision. The supporting cast begins to thin as the cap cannot support market rate deals for everyone at once. Role players get priced out. Depth starts to disappear. A team that once thrived on 10 solid contributors and a deep, hungry bench gradually becomes thinner with each offseason, as every new contract forces another difficult exit. Clark's raise is justified. The cap squeeze is inevitable. Those two truths aren't in conflict, they are the same story viewed from different sides.